All right. Well, I'm fucking stoked for this episode. So I'm joined today by Light Stone, human excellence coach, massive, I would say, deity. Actually, that's the way I see you, bro. You got the tattoos on the head, the tattoos on the eyes. You're a one of a kind for sure, and I'm really stoked to have this conversation with you.
Bro, game sees game.
My man, I appreciate that. It'd be like that. You got the silver fangs in too, dude.
Yeah.
I respect the vibe.
Aggravated damage against ethereals, undead, and
What is it? Say it again, bro.
So I've got a background in Dungeons and Dragons, and so it's fun to be able to take some of those really esoteric concepts and translate it into game terms. So in D&D, silver is basically toxic to like undead creatures. Whoa. So it'd be like magical or aggravated damage.
That's interesting, bro. Fuck the zombies.
Yeah,
Keep them away.
Exactly.
That's interesting, dude. Cool.
Yeah.
And first thing I want to talk about with you is your image.
Okay.
So we met like a year ago briefly. I haven't seen you in forever, and it's dope to see you first off.
You too.
And I want to talk about your image. So you, Light Stone, where did this come from? You have the tattoos on the hands, you have the tattoos on the eyes. I don't know, maybe show people your chest tat if you're comfortable with it. So he's got this crazy chest tat, and what does it say?
So it says Om Namah Shivaya, and each one of these correlates to the Pancha Mahabhuta, which is all of the 5 different elements. And then I have it on my head, and then also on my ankles as well, both. And so it correlates to each and every basically element or tattva encapsulated within the divine masculine of Shiva, and the counterpart would be Shakti as well. Yeah, but I represent the masculine aspect.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so just so people know, I mean, I have a less intense tattoo that is also Om Namah Shivaya just on my forearm right here. So it's like that invocation of the divine masculine and of the creator and the destroyer from a certain, cosmological view.
And I really like your tattoo, and it's Sanskrit. So mine goes inward and yours goes outward on your breast. Yeah, it's just kind of cool.
Yeah. So this one on my chest, I guess I'll just show
Yeah.
Showing tats.
Yeah.
So this one is the Gate mantra. So gone beyond even that. And then Bodhisattva, which is Hail Awakening. It's the end of the Heart Sutra in Buddhism. Yeah. And this is Tibetan. But yeah, it is interesting. It's going outwards from the heart, from this kind of empty void in the chest, which is, again, symbolic. Yeah. But again, staying with your image. So where did you get this? So you have the tattooed eyeliner over your eyes. You got the piercings. You got the tattoos. You got the hair. Yeah. You're a very pronounced being. Yeah. And I won't even say human being.
Temporarily human.
Yeah, right. Or at least in this human vessel.
Sure, both of us.
If it's what we, if we want to call ourselves human.
Yeah, both of us.
That is I would say maybe we're not only human.
100%.
You know what I mean? So for you, I'm like, where did this image come from?
Yeah. I think for me, I was very intentional about crafting myself. If I could choose to be anything, I would choose to be light, having come out of the darkness and understanding what is the difference between darkness and light. Darkness being kind of retracting and also deconstructive or destructive, with light being constructive. And so to truly know light, you have to then know darkness. And to know darkness, you have to understand the polarity and the duality of light. So even for me with the tattoo, we have here, the Om sign is actually in negative space. So you don't have the Om or universal consciousness and love without that darkness. And so I had a Dungeons and Dragons character, and it was a relatively canon character within the company that I ran, Apotheosis Studios, many years ago. And I crafted this character, Vajra Ajay Viendra, and he has these tattoos and had blue hair. And I wanted to both have an external manifestation of my persona and self that I could then use as kind of a direction to aspire towards. Whoa. Yeah, and then better embody that. Cool. And I then surpassed what he was and surpassed even that time in my life. And then took the moniker and name of light legally to try to embrace what does that archetype now mean for me, not some game thing or not some character. And we had like even little action figures and stuff. But what does that mean to me to be divinely masculine?
So just to reflect, so you found this archetype through Dungeons and Dragons. You created this character.
Yeah, for myself. Yeah.
For yourself.
Yeah, to feel safe enough to embody what a truly powerful masculine, and he was a demon hunter. He would go around literally slaying demons. And then within the canonical arc of him, he realized that when you kill the demons, they just go back down to Avernus, their version of hell, and they come back again, stronger. So it's like not really a very good, like successful strategy of removing evil. And so he then created a demon daycare to then help the demons thrive. Yeah.
Wait, this is your character?
Yeah.
That's trippy, bro. It reminds me of parts work, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point, because I know that you're really versed in that. Yeah. And in a sense, you are sort of a demon hunter now.
Totally. But a demon helper.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. At a certain point, if you want to kill your demons, you got to kill them with love. Yep. Right? Which is so trippy.
Or illuminate them so they can understand their wounded places, so they no longer are predators. Yeah.
So from my lens, bro, you've chosen to inhabit this constructed image, which is powerful, because I think so many people just think, oh, this is how I am. Sure. Just how I've been sculpted by the world. Sure. Forgetting that actually we have a role to play in this image that we choose to become. Sure. And what I want to present to people is this image, this path of self-deification, of recognizing that, yes, at one level we're human, but maybe we're not only human.
I think we're definitely not only human.
Exactly, bro. I think if you just pay close attention, not even close attention, if you just spend time with that question, am I just human? Something beautiful dawns in the being where I'm not only human. Right. So obviously we have dimensionality to our experience of self. And for you to make this bold move to choose who you want to be and to step into that. I see that as not only like heroic, actually, to go against the culturally conditioned norm of what somebody is, what's normal, and to step into the fullest expression of self, which is, again, beautiful, heroic. You're paving paths for people. And this is a part of what I see as so liberating for the self, is recognizing there is no way that you are inherently. You don't have to fall for the culturally conditioned norms. You can be crazy. You can let the soul really just let it loose and let it run, let it express, not be afraid of that. And that authenticity is utter freedom. To let something beyond this, I guess, notion of ego, human self, this thing called Ben, let something beyond that actually take the wheel. And sculpt something profound.
To co-create it.
Exactly.
Are you familiar with Robert Keegan and his developmental psychology? He's kind of, because we both went to Naropa, and you have your master's, I only have my BA at Naropa. Robert Keegan has this notion, he has several stages of human development. When I studied there, I loved my developmental class, psych class. And so he has this stage of 4 that's called self-authoring, and it's very much what you're talking about. You create, and at first it's a constructed persona, so it's external. You construct almost a false facade. That's what the D&D character was for me. It was an external thing, was not me, and it was aspirational. You then have his stage 5, which is self-transforming, where you now don't necessarily inhabit that form. You transform into something hopefully beyond that, to something that you don't even know what it is. That for me would be light, who I am now. I have parts of Vajra in me, and that's super cool, and I'm covered in the same iconography, but even my tattoos mean something different. I've gotten additional tattoos like the circle on my Ajna chakra and other things. But it's that stage of you basically create a template, and then you transcend the template and you break that template, and that is who in that moment, who you really are, and then you continue iterating off of that.
Wow. And I love that, because in that moment where you break the template, you're not walking on a set path anymore. And again, that unknown, that groundlessness, there's infinite potential there.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. And that's the beauty of it. We are always creating and discovering ourselves. If we have, I think, the courage to break those molds and to step into more of that unknown. Who am I? And from the Buddhist lens, it's an infinite question, actually. You'll never be able to really find who you are in a stable way, at least. Because it's always changing and flowing.
Interdependence.
Exactly. And so I think it's it's profound to see you stepping into that and to continue to walk that path. And I'm doing something similar.
I was gonna say, game sees game, bro.
Game sees game, exactly, bro. And again, for me, it's like I felt like I didn't have a choice.
Sure.
It was like this recognition of like, who am I? Who do I want to be? And you set these molds for yourself. You set these sort of relative goals, and then you shatter them.
Yeah.
And you become all these things, and you're like, is that who I am? And it's like it doesn't quite feel right.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite feel like who I am.
Yeah.
So you keep progressing.
Bro, it's like Dragon Ball Z. There's no final form. You just keep going.
Literally, bro. Literally, Super Saiyan times 12,
exactly.
bro. It just doesn't stop. And there's something beautiful in that. Where again, when we let go of the contracted form of self, which is just universal in the culture, basically. We think there's a real me, and I'm Ben Duffy, the accumulation of my stories, my experiences, my character, this body. That's what Ben is.
Yeah.
But really inquiring into that, I can't find Ben.
I found him right here.
Yeah, like at the same time, and that's why you're so dope. Like,
I know.
So
the absolute and relative comes back full circle. But then you keep changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have this profound infinite pursuit.
Yeah.
Where again we get to create and discover who we are, and this is that process of deification. Where what happens if I set an image for myself where I'm not only human, acknowledging the dimensionality of self.
Yeah.
Where I'm human. That's just one dimension.
Yeah.
What if I'm also, in my terminology, like an expression of source, an expression of God. I'm an expression of the angels.
Yep.
And maybe I could be a deity as well.
Sure.
And what happens when we start to own that, recognizing the fluidity of all selves, the emptiness of all selves, is interesting. You start to become that.
So I would say you are that. So for me, what I find to be the interesting balance point, and it can get really tricky, particularly when you take large quantities of psychedelics, which I love doing.
I also love doing, bro.
And so when you embrace yourself from that deific perspective, it can be possible to lose grounding of the actual human aspects of who we are, get into hypomanic states, euphoria, whatever it is. And so then to be both human and non-human simultaneously, and to hold that, still pay your taxes, still, go to the gym. Like for me, that's not hard, but for some people that it's a challenge to actually do those set things while knowing that, yes, everything is synchronicitous. Everything is happening simultaneously. You are a manifestation of source, and yet you still have to take a shit.
Exactly, bro. So you're like, we're not losing the relative in these very profound, deep, open sort of narratives. So we have to acknowledge both and the reality of both. I think the human mind tends to get trapped in, I'm either a human or I'm God, or a deity. And
then those are the people, unfortunately, who are homeless on the street, shouting to the high heavens, I'm God, I'm God, I'm God. And yet they don't have any food to eat.
Yeah, bro. And that's the thing. It's like, for me, that's not the life that I want to live.
No, I literally driving here past the Shambhala Center. So as you're familiar, this guy, it's green light, do not walk sign, and he's walking. My initial reaction walking, I'm like, what the fuck? I see he's got no shoes or socks on, covered in a blanket. And I'm like, okay, like someone help him. I can't, but clearly he's gone, totally gone. And I think that's a manifestation of he could be in that Godhead state without actually being in that human state. Yeah.
And I mean, that's brutal. It was like 10
degrees. It was fucking cold outside.
It was like 10 degrees out.
It's really cold.
And that's the thing. I think this brings me to this notion of, in Buddhism, the middle way.
Yeah.
The middle way between extremes.
That's well said.
Where it's like, we can be God. Sometimes, like when I'm tripping on mushrooms in the mountains, running 30 miles, I feel more like a God than I do like a human being. But then when I'm, again, just seeing clients or I'm with my family, I'm just Ben the human.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the real deep freedom comes from the accessibility to both of those views.
Yeah.
And also being able to flow on that spectrum.
Can I ask you an IFS question?
Yeah.
When can you feel in your body, and I can share too, can you feel in your body the distinction there? And then to try to have the like a Visky's Pisces, Venn diagram overlap?
Yeah. So for me, the feeling of being like Ben the human, is that what you're asking?
Sure. Both.
So, yeah. So Ben the human, it does have this, a little bit of a flat feeling.
Sure.
It feels a little tight.
Okay.
Not in a bad way.
Sure.
Sort of like it's very grounded. Okay. You know what I mean? It's very stable.
Sure.
Everyone knows I'm Ben the human. I don't have to convince people that I'm Ben the human. You know what I mean? Okay. It's easy.
Sure.
And then let's just say the feeling of being more in that deified self-image when I'm on 5 grams of mushrooms in the mountains running.
Yeah.
It's much looser, more unpredictable actually. Yeah. There's an image that is not so grounded.
Okay.
There's something that is more open, more fluid, something that is that I can't predict in the same way, where it can express in ways that I wouldn't expect.
Yeah, okay.
Let's just put it like
unexpected to the human aspect of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's trippy, actually. But it's almost it's looser.
Sure.
It's also harder to express that part of me, I've noticed, like in Boulder. Like,
interesting.
Like where it's like seems to be this conditioning.
Okay.
Of those like feedback of like, he's not a god. This is not a conscious processing. But
even in Boulder.
Yeah.
Which is pretty like spiritually liberal.
It is pretty spiritual. But also there's a lot of like, you know, normal ass people in Boulder, you know, so it's like people walking down the street on Pearl Street, you don't look at someone and be like, oh, they're in God mode. Right now. They're just like, oh, human beings.
Right.
Yep. Just like normal Earth.
Right.
And I think there's an impact actually of people holding those views.
Yep.
Have you heard of Dean Radin?
Remind me.
So Dean Radin, he studies things like extrasensory perception and magic.
Okay.
So he does like scientific studies to study magic.
Okay.
And he has this really interesting sort of realization, hypothesis about a field of belief, where what is possible in a certain experience in a certain culture is actually determined by the narrative, the conceptual notions of what's possible and what's not.
Wait, what other people believe to be
exactly.
Yeah, the massive reality has mass.
Exactly. Yeah. And that actually varies from
locale,
society to society.
Yes, and location.
So where something like in Boulder in the United States, where something like, for instance, we'll talk about like levitation, which has been talked about in various mystical traditions all over the place.
Is a thing without a doubt.
It's like universal.
Yes.
So that exists in, let's just say, Tibetan monasteries, where they don't bat an eyelash. You're like, my master levitates from monastery to monastery, and they don't bat an eyelash. And to us, that seems impossible. But could that be due to a certain field of belief? Where in the culture, we're conditioned to say levitation's impossible. Duh. And when everyone thinks that, and so it is. Where it's like, what happens?
Or at least, and so it is much harder.
Yeah, exactly. You need more of that very strong personal belief. Where it's interesting. Then there's beings like Christ, for instance, that could walk on water. And I'm assuming, again, from this hypothesis, from this theory, it would be easier to walk on water if people didn't have a story operating that says that's impossible. You know, where that also that in a sense fits the worldview of people. Because when we create a worldview where levitation, walking through walls, transcending time and space is impossible, we are the creators, and so it is. And that's the thing. That's the profundity of this teaching and what Dean Radin is actually studying, which is what is the impact of worldviews on what we experience as quote unquote reality. Is like scientific reductionism, is that inherently the way that things are?
Or was that a power system and a control system that is put in place to keep the massive population in stable control?
Whoa. And I think there's something beautiful when we're talking about, because we could frame this as very loose and very dense belief systems. Really, again, how solid is my world? Does it allow for things like levitation? Does it allow for miracles? Does it allow for the unexpected? Or do we say that's not possible because science doesn't say so?
And certain religions are very, very, very open-minded about those things too, which is very fascinating. Even some religions that are incredibly dogmatic, like Christianity and Catholicism, I'm not saying that is a good or a bad religion. We can talk about that too, but they are very bullish on magic, angels, demons, all of the metaphysical. They say this is real and you shouldn't practice it. But they say it's very, very, very real.
That's actually valid. And they're actually, it seems like they're pushing away those more like pagan magic.
Or burning them at the stake and skinning them alive and scraping their skin off with shells, specifically.
With shells?
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't remember the woman's name, but she was the proprietor of, I believe, the Library of Alexandria. Yeah, they skinned her alive with shells. Yeah. The
Christians did.
Correct. Yeah. And then they canonized and made that man a saint. Yeah.
Whoa, let's go. That's weird, bro. So that's the thing. It seems like these power systems, which I will say Christianity is just one of them. You know what I mean? There are many power systems, but part of being a dominant power system means you have to squash the opposition. And that means any other opposing view. Or eat them. But you have to make sure that you maintain that power.
And what's interesting, so that is a very, I'm really appreciating this conversation. That perspective, what you're saying, and I know you don't do this, but we're observing it. That is a predatory perspective. So we can have a symbiotic perspective within a unified system that actually sees these other power systems as allies versus them being in opposition.
That's so cool. And I love that perspective. And it reminds me of what I heard about like somewhere like India that is extremely open to really different ways of religions, worldviews, ways of being. You have like sort of classical Hinduism, then you have like Tantra, which is kind of in reverse of Hinduism. And it's open to all of these expressions. And there's like a symbiotic ecosystem happening where in other belief systems, other power systems, again, they try to squash that.
Either kill it or eat it.
And it's interesting. It gives me this image of sort of like a monocropped Monsanto field. Like they want the psyche to be monocropped. It's all the same. Because that limits the unpredictability. Life is very predictable,
particularly
and easy.
If they're then trying to harvest humans as a crop, and then they can tailor those humans specifically to what they want them to be.
Say more to that.
So there's a pretty prominent belief that that planet Earth is not necessarily a prison planet, but more of like a farm, and that a lot of people basically are here to be a crop, an energetic crop for, we could say, non-corporeal and corporeal entities that feed off of pain and suffering. And so that power system would keep humans in a very specific ideological and self perspective in which they are just off-gassing pain and suffering and negative emotion, and that is what is the actual food source for these other higher dimensional non-corporeal and corporeal entities.
Bro, that's so trippy because I've never heard like a formal theory about that, but it makes sense where it's like evolutionarily, what's the purpose of so much pain and suffering? And I would say really unskillful views. And it seems like
it's very disproportionate too. It does not need to be that way.
It doesn't need to be that way. This place again is a dream. In Tibetan dream yoga, they say that so in dream yoga, there are yogis that never lose consciousness. They fade into dreams and dreamless sleep, and they're actually aware of the whole thing. And they say when you're aware of dreams and dreamless sleep enough, you recognize that dreams and waking consciousness, there's actually no distinguishable difference. So then why can't I levitate? Why does this fucking suck? If it's a dream, why isn't it beautiful? Why isn't it what I make it? It's because, well, in a sense, it is what you make it. In a sense, it is sort of.
And there are rules too. I mean, there are physical rules, metaphysical rules, and those rules that, as you mentioned, the massive reality has mass. And if you then can train a population to be so bought into a certain way of life, that then will create a power system. And if you have a power system that controls that power system, the actual inmates are then basically keeping themselves self-regulated inside of their own power system that you've created to feed off of them.
Oh, wait, holy shit. So what's coming to my mind is we get some reptilians and some other shit, some 3i Atlas type shit. And then we get like Daddy Trump and the Pope, and everyone's convincing people of these views. And then everyone else seems to hold everyone accountable for these. And
those would
views.
Be probably the 6-dimensional physical entities. You then go a step higher, and then you can get some 6 and 7s that would be like Cthulhuoids, and they would be Cthulhuoid, like Cthulhu.
Like tentacle.
Like Lovecraftian.
Whoa. So I need to ask. Do these beings, do they exist inherently in your mind? Are they inherently real, or where do they exist?
So it depends on how you want to look at the cosmology. So we can say, I'm having a physical experience of you. You are existing in my mind in that way. So behind here, the camera, no one can see. There's a person with a dog. So the people can't actually see this person back here, but he's very real and he's waving. Right? And he's very nice, and we're both friends with him. So they aren't able to actually see this person, but we see this person. Is this person any less real just because the audience can't see him or perceive him? Well, they are actually perceiving him very profoundly. He's switching the cameras. He's making sure our mics are in check. You know, he's making he's fucking running the show, bro. Literally running the show from this higher dimensional perspective. So are then those Cthulhuoids less real because you can't perceive them? And it then comes to the nature of perception and interaction. You may not be consciously perceiving them, but they are interacting with you and you are interacting with them.
That's interesting.
So how do you draw the line of what is real and what's not real? You almost have to look at the outlines of things. You may not be able to see the thing itself, but you can see the edge cases of where you bump into it.
So for me, this comes down to like, I think ontology and epistemology, right? So the study of being and the study of knowledge. Like, how do we take in the infinite abstract data that we call life?
That's so confusing. It's so fucking confusing.
And how do we make a truth on the nature of being out of all this infinite data?
It's so limited too.
And that's the thing. So my whole thing is, how can we separate what we are perceiving from, for instance, what the mind is constructing.
Sure.
So it seems like, to me, the mind is constructing narratives,
a facsimile of what may be happening to help us navigate a very confusing environment.
Exactly. So, and then how can we make a truth claim
Yep.
on anything?
Yes.
It's like, and that's what's so
profound.
It's liberating. It's destabilizing to the ego, I think, as well.
Well, you can actually have a psychotic break if you. The
ego can. If we think that we're solid inherently, that solidity breaks.
Well, particularly if your worldview is challenged. So I think if people really came to terms with this concept that I'm sharing, that we are in a control system in which we are being fed upon and preyed upon, that is so outrageously challenging to just. It's just terrifying that it's easier to just not deal with that. I think that your question is a really good one, though, and I want to come back to it. How can you tell that these things are real? And where then, I think there's also another question there of illusion. How do we make sure that we don't then succumb to fantasy or incorrect or fallacious thinking? Right?
Well, so for me, it's like I'm a therapist and I see clients. I have a 11-year-old client and he talks about, I've just been scared. Like I had this story about a monster outside my window and I couldn't sleep for like 6 hours. And I'm like, so it seems real to him, but he knows he made it up in his head.
Or maybe it's an alien and we don't, and we don't know. Right. So then how can you then analyze and actually try to understand the external validation and validity of those things? And that's then the question.
Dude, I'm trying to figure it out because like I've been a seeker of quote unquote truth for so long, and that's what has taken me on all these different spiritual paths. And a lot of the far out narratives that are especially coming up nowadays in this kind of age of fake news where objective truth is so hard to discern. Like, what's the deal with 3-Eye Atlas? Like, what's the actual deal with that?
I can tell you what I think it is.
Tell me, bro. I guarantee it.
I think it was a reptilian spacecraft that then was taken over and co-opted and is no longer a threat. That's my honest opinion.
By human beings.
No, by probably a coalition. There were probably some humans involved. By benevolent forces that did not want a reptilian invasion to occur.
What?
Yes, that is my honest opinion.
So I think that's really cool. It gives so from my lens of like a really deep grasp of emptiness. I'm like, all of these views could be empty. And I don't believe that experience is just the scientific materialistic reductionist lens. So I really believe it could be that.
Possible,
and I think it's like it's an epic fucking story to try on. It's way more creative and in a sense like beautiful and mythic than we're just human beings and that was just a comet asteroid.
And it could, without verifiable evidence, we have to maintain that it still could be just a comet, an interstellar visitor, right? That's non-locomotive, that has no life, and that is potentially real. But we then have to look at available use data and we have to make almost like a series of assumptions and not hold on to them too tightly, because then we fall into dogma.
Yes. And I think that's the money right there. Not holding on to them too tightly. And it reminds me of what we talked about in the beginning, which is we are human, but we're not only human. And maybe that was a comet, but it's not only a comet. You know what I mean? And maybe
it was a reptilian or maybe it wasn't. And we don't know.
Exactly. And
some people do. I think some people know.
But I like to think some people know. Who I don't know. That's for damn sure. And that's why we're trying to figure it out. But
maybe you do know on a very deep level. And then we can kind of listen to that eighth dimensional whisper and then get a little bit of an intuition from a deeper or higher sense of self.
And from my lens, which is that perception, what we experience to be real, it's a co-creation. Like when I hold that view that was a reptilian mothership, whoa, I'm in a different world.
Fuck yeah, you are, bro.
Literally.
Seriously. No, for real. And so how does it feel being in that world for that moment?
Epic. It's like, it's scary. I feel like personal responsibility to do something.
Gotta do some shit.
It's like it invokes a certain a myth of self. It's evoking a different
This is
world.
The deification of self you were talking about.
So the deification of self, I cannot be a deity and only exist in the flat scientific materialistic view. Like I need a context that matches how epic my self is. Do you know what I mean? Because they co-create each other. And so for me, again, holding it loosely, that's the key. Where who knows? Something comes out and it's like, that was objectively an asteroid. We can prove it because it just blew up. And it's, guess what? It's full of nothing.
Although they also said that the moon landing was a certain way and it probably wasn't. So it's like, but that's a control system. And so who do you trust? What information do you trust? Like you have to come back to kind of your own personal direct experience and then try to listen to trusted sources. And the government is probably not one of those trusted sources.
I definitely agree with that. And then it's like, when the government is not a trusted source, or even just like general media, like who do you trust?
Do you mean propaganda?
I mean propaganda, aka like everything that you see. You know what I mean? It's all
not here though, folks. This is all truth.
Literally. But so what I think we're approaching is, interestingly, this age beyond objective truth. And it reminds me of something I heard in a Dharma talk where they said, in the golden age, I think this is in the Kabbalion, in the golden age, everyone will have their own unique experience of God. And I think their own unique experience of the world. As unique as we are, not falling for that monocropping of the mind, we can walk that middle path between real and unreal. Simultaneously both. How could it be both? Recognizing that what I experience, it feels real. It's as real as anything else could be. But yet I can also see how it's constructed.
So there's an interesting kind of thought exercise you can do. And I label it that. So this is still like, it's a mental exercise. And it helped me approach the absurdity of some of these things, because some of them are just absurd. So in an infinite universe, an infinitely expanding universe, all things are possible. Like literally anything is possible. You have to put it on a timeline, so it may not all be happening right now, but then if you step outside of space and time, like a good Buddhist does, then it's all the eternal now, and then everything's happening all at once. Okay, so if everything's happening all at once, 3i Atlas is both simultaneous a reptilian overlord ship, also an asteroid, also my 8-year-old daughter's plushy space toy, right?
For sure.
Like it can't not be.
Because it's infinite.
It's all infinite. And in some place in the grand Leela play of experience, it is happening. And so then it's, how close am I, the ego persona of Lightstone, to all of those different potentialities? Well, I may be semi-close to some of them and very fucking far away from others, like the space plushie. It's probably not a space plushie. Probably not, right? High, like low degree of probability on that one. And when we think of an alien mothership, man, that seems low probability, but does it really? Actually not really that low if you think about Anunnaki and you think about Elohim, you think about all of these other things. And so then you have to kind of hold, I call it phase shifting, these different phases of reality, and they're in kind of a quantum flux state, kind of like the Schrodinger's cat. You don't know if the cat inside is alive or dead, and you have to simultaneously hold, it may be a space plushie, probably not that one, but it may be a mothership, it may just be ice and rock. And hold both of them simultaneously and create a decision-making or choice-making matrix that accounts for both of those two things to be real. And at some point, hopefully, you can then phase lock one of them into, nope, the cat's definitely dead inside the box. And then the entire other branching universe is now no longer real to you. In this moment. Could be real someplace else, but not to you from your locus of perception. So you can take the infinite possibility, hold that simultaneously with all these different options, and then eventually you'll prune off these potentials into an actuality.
And when you say actuality, a lived real experience.
This is like that. This is sparkling water. Inside of this is sparkling water, not whiskey.
So do you mean, so for me, there's like, is there a distinction between perception and especially the constructed nature of perception?
Yeah. So like Lynchy would like hit you with the stick and say, was that real? You'd be like, ow, yeah, it was real. Like, yes, I can verify because you're an asshole because you just fucking hit me, Yeah.
So, but like, is there a difference between the perception and the world out there?
Or he would hit you with a stick again. Say how real, but I hit you.
So what I'm hearing, just to reflect, it seems like we have this matrix of infinite possibilities. We take, our best guesses. It could be this, it could be that, narrow it down to a few or two. And then we make a choice. And then we close off the other.
Hopefully you close them when you have enough available data or evidence. So it basically, it's like Occam's razor. It prunes itself. The system would prune itself.
And that constructs your reality.
Your reality would be constructed by that.
And when we say your reality, in your mind, is that the objective reality? Is that subjective?
We would hopefully then state that it would be a mutually co-shared subjective objective harmony.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So that way we could agree on what we're seeing.
Right.
We can both agree that there is a person behind that desk who is our friend and ally who is helping us. And even though the people that are, part of this podcast listening or watching, they don't know. And we can say, hey, the guy back there is a nice guy. His dog's a nice dog. Mm-hmm. And they can trust us because they trust us on that fact because they trust us on other facts. But ultimately, for them to truly prune that in that way that he's there, they'd have to see him. Now, I can take my cell phone out and I can do some magic here. So I can actually take a photo of him and then I can put that photo right here. And now we just pruned it. Boom, there he is.
We proved it.
Right?
It's
so,
like a Bigfoot photo.
And so we now have that in space and time.
Yeah.
And that's super cool. And we all can share that because of the data of the photo.
Yeah.
Of the evidence.
It's, oh my God. Like, you're a fucking legend, bro. This conversation, I don't know if I can have this with another human being.
I love mirroring. I love mirroring with you because you are a legend.
Dude, we got to do this more often, bro. Yeah. This is crazy. So, and we're walking this path between real and unreal. And almost like what's the difference?
Yep.
At the level of perception, we can construct a world that is 3i Atlas was just an asteroid.
Yes.
Or I'm just Ben the Human. And it feels really real. Like, of course that's the way things are.
Yep.
And then we can try on a different narrative.
But we have to test it out. We have to, and just like in Zen, as a good Buddhist, we have to test if the tea is hot. Because if we think that the tea is cold and other people tell us the tea is hot, we say, no, the tea is hot. But then we are like, no, it's cold because we want it to be cold because cold is fun. Because I want it to be a space plushie because I love my daughter. Then if I actually drink it and if I don't acknowledge truthfully and are truly honest with myself that no, that tea is actually hot, then we are living in illusion and confusion.
Yes. So there's like so much nuance in this conversation where there is a way that things are in the sense of what we could call relative reality.
There are objective truths.
Objective truths in relative reality.
Yes.
At least that's what it appears to be.
Objective truths in our relative
experience.
Experience of reality. Yes.
But like it's actually a jump to assume that those relative truths are also ultimate truths.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I think the only ultimate truths, at least from my understanding, within particularly we talked about kind of the human realm and then other locus or other realms, there would be axiomatic truths.
What does that word mean?
So from like a Hermetic perspective, the Kabbalion talks about this. I've kind of adopted it for my own, so I'm not directly quoting them. Basically, we would have an axiomatic truth that would be true in all realms, every place possible. So they say that there are local laws. So the law of gravity here, if I drop this, it goes down. Right. The law of women, if you're not nice to them, they maybe won't sleep with you. Yeah, or maybe they will, and then you don't. Then maybe you don't want to be that type of guy. Either way, that would be a law, right?
Yeah.
In another universe, things might operate differently. Gravity might go backwards. Who knows? But there would be an axiomatic truth. And so it would be true everywhere. I believe that those are things like the law of consent, the law of predation. And so if you are a symbiote versus a parasite, how you orient to your environment, kind of like we were talking about differently, your environment would orient to you. And so the entire system is cohesive, where you then have within that large bubble, multiverse, whatever, different laws in different places to play with the profundity and the infinite expanding possibilities. Yeah. But there has to be a cohesive matrix that keeps the whole thing together. That would be a series of axiomatic truths. The Kabbalion goes and they list a bunch. They're not really relevant to me. Consent and I don't know, the sleeping with women part is more interesting to me. This had to do so ethically. More
pragmatic.
Yeah.
And
particularly as a spiritual fuckboy, I think one might agree.
Sure, of course. We're here on Spiritual Fuckboy. We can talk about chicks anytime. But I think it's so interesting to play with these ideas. And for me, I really hold to the fact that we have to play with them lightly.
Yeah.
Or else they turn into another dogma. Just like we fall for fundamentalist Christian dogma, or we fall for scientism dogma. It's all a cage.
Yeah.
And for me, like recognizing, just feeling into the cage.
Yeah.
Like first we recognize, this belief system, the more I solidify it, the more I'm trapped within it.
Can be, yeah.
And then
if you do the thing that you're saying not to do.
which is to solidify.
Correct.
To say that this is objectively the way that things are for everybody.
Yep.
And at the level
and
of
I'm so certain about it that I'm willing to die on a hill about it.
Exactly.
You got to really know whatever that thing is.
Exactly.
And the only things that I personally would stand my ground on are like things like truth, like do not lie. But, maybe there are times where it's okay to lie, and that's a choice. Situations like love is the most fundamental force of the universe. I believe that is true. And that's something I'd be willing to stake my life on. Yeah. But like through Atlas, bro, like unless I'm on that ship.
That's a shot in the dark.
Well, it's a shot in space, at least. It's very far away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But at the same time, like feeling into those stories, when I say that 3i Atlas is not a comet, it's a reptilian mothership.
Yeah.
There's a very real impact on my being.
Yeah.
It's very real. I feel it. I'm like, oh shit, should I buy guns or should I start praying to Jesus?
At least some crystals. At least buy some crystals.
Literally, at least get some amethyst in that bitch, bro. But I think, again, for me, the beauty, the freedom, and really the deep, deep personal agency comes when we hold these things lightly. Yeah. Where I can try on, for instance, the fundamentalist Christian view. Sure. I can try on the materialistic scientism view. I can try on the view that 3i Atlas is a mothership. Yeah. And who knows, maybe they're coming back. Yeah. And when I try on those views, it's more feeling into the impact. Yep. Recognizing at the level of my subjective perception, they're all experienced in a certain flavor of reality where they seem real. And for me, then when I recognize that, where I can try on all of these different views and have them be relatively real, especially with high doses of psychedelics, you experience a lot of those things. Am I talking to God right now? Is this Jesus? Is this a demon? What's going on?
Yeah. And what's the difference?
Yeah. And for me, it was those experiences forced me to hold it all loosely. Yeah. Or is it all in my mind? Yeah. And can it be all of it at the same time?
And if you go, it's all in my mind, you can then come back full round circle because then you're in charge of everything. And then you can kind of get out of that loop, like get out of that particular prison. One of the ways that I like to approach this is the difference between true embodiment and cosplay. And I love cosplay. I used to dress up at cosplay. I used to go to, Comic-Cons all the time and sell my books, all of it. Cosplay is great. But this goes back to the beginning of our conversation talking about the D&D character Vajra versus who I am now as light. We can try something on, fundamentalist Christian, whatever, it doesn't matter what that is, as cosplay. But if we actually try to like embody, hopefully not a super fundamentalist Christian, there are worse things to embody. But if we actually then use it as a template and a direction to then really be in that moment, I think that that's the looseness that you're talking about, because then you're not dogmatic about those things. You're able to embrace the good parts, let go of the bad parts, and hopefully have it be a decision-making matrix where you're not actually necessarily holding on to much. It's a matrix of decision-making, right? So it's not, they're more of like guiding principles versus rules, right? And then you move in a direction. How I do this in my coaching program, we have benchmarks, we have velocity, that's your speed, and orientation. And so you're literally looking in a direction, making choices in a good way to get to a location that you want to go. That's not the end point. There's no end. They're just benchmarks. And you hit those benchmarks like gates, boom, like Bardos, boom, 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 boom. And if it feels good, keep going. And if it's sustainable velocity, keep going.
Yeah. And that's coming back to that personal power and agency where we are actually choosing the path.
Yes.
And then we're walking it.
Yes.
And I think the freedom just comes from the recognition of that, regardless of what you want to do with it. But just recognize these stories, these images, these archetypes. They're we could say that they're co-constructed. We could also say they're given to us from other places. Again, we get to choose, but ultimately we get to step into those archetypes, imaginal figures, worldviews, and feel them on. And the way I word it, it's like you try them on like clothes. Be like, how does it feel to be a deity and a god?
Like, it's very tantric. Yeah,
exactly. So, and again, we're merging these dualities between real and unreal, between material and imagined. Interestingly, they can start to blend and merge into one thing where you can't really tell the difference between the two.
So parts work is really, I think, helpful in this. That's why I love IFS. So you can have that locus of self, big self, and then these other things can become parts within internal family systems. And I just love it so much. It's so helpful.
I would love to deep dive on IFS.
Oh, we can.
Either today or at some
point.
We
can do a whole podcast on IFS.
I would love to.
We can totally do that.
Please continue.
So from this perspective, we can have external parts. And the deities that you're talking about, and it is almost like deity cosplay, not in a bad way, as I was saying before, but wearing like a mask of a thing. So a person can wear the mask of Shiva, wear the mask of Shakti, Brahma, doesn't matter who it is, Odin, whatever you want. And that can be an external thing. Now, part of it is our ability to embrace whatever that external archetype is, our understanding, our own frameworks, our own limitations, what we even know of Shiva. And unless you're on a lot of drugs or a really good channel, it's hard for those external things to get here. It's so dense in my experience here. And so that's then trying that on. There then is a difference of understanding that archetype inside of you. So that's the difference. No longer outside. I think this is where the Christians get a little confused about putting God too far away, but understand, I actually have, what is Shiva? Divine masculine power, destruction. Not bad. He's neither good nor bad. He actually does a lot of great things if you really look at the literature, other than, killing his son, but he brought him back to life.
Literally. It was Ganesha, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, he wanted to be with his wife.
He's figuring it out.
It was sexy time, bro. Like, his wife was taking a bath. Yeah. So my point here is, you can try that deity on externally, or you can embrace what that deity is for you. And that's a little bit of a different perspective.
Can you explain the difference? So just to reflect what I'm hearing, it sounds like, so we have this image of Shiva.
Sure.
This image sort of exists outside of us.
Well, it totally exists outside of us.
Exists.
It is a thing that many people literally worship. They worship his cock, bro. So Shiva Lingam, they literally, there are national holidays for this entity's phallus.
That's pretty legendary.
Bro.
Shiva as that being is like, you like that? Like, you dump that oil, you dump the milk on it.
National, the entire society shuts down and they all worship his cock.
Epic, bro.
Again, all of my tattoos are Shiva tattoos. Just going on the record.
Yeah, just you're fucking hilarious, bro. So this figure Shiva, they exist outside of us,
100%,
and simultaneously they exist within us.
Absolutely.
So it's actually, because Shiva to me is probably different than what the image of Shiva is to you, because you have different experiences, you've read different books, you have different teachers.
That's the filter I was talking about.
Right, exactly. So it's almost reminds me of what was Plato's like utopia kind of writing, where it's this sort of unattainable thing.
Sure.
Where how can I ever get in touch with that real image of Shiva, for instance?
Sure.
How can I be sure? How can I accumulate all of the data?
There are psychedelics for that.
Yeah, no, facts. I mean, you're talking to the right guy. So
I totally appreciate what you're saying, though. And so I think that there's a kind of a duality here of trying to approach an external archetype versus embodying an internal archetype that is a mirror, right? So we can look at the external Shiva mirror and then try to awaken that Shiva essence inside of ourselves. Now, if we get kind of like super multidimensional on it, it's also what version or timeline of the external Shiva are you getting? So if you look at Shiva, and if you actually study Shiva through time and space, originally he was Rudra. Rudra was a wind god, really horrible, very angry deity. And arguably maybe came out of Mesopotamia. We can talk more about it, and maybe had horns. It's a whole thing.
That's cool.
I like to think of myself as a Shiva aficionado.
Dude,
and so if you look at where Shiva came from originally, some people say he's an alien. I think he's pretty homegrown, maybe influenced. But there are cross-legged figures of a horned deity teaching yoga,
like a Baphomet type.
Similar, not quite, not so sacrifice your children to evil.
Not so evil.
Yeah.
I'm wondering too, because there's people that say these images, these archetypes, they just exist in the collective conscious.
Collective unconscious, yeah.
Right. So beyond, like, let's just say the people that created Baphomet were quite a distance away from the people that constructed Shiva or Rudra.
Yeah.
So maybe these things just exist in the collective psyche, or
I love like the psychologist in you, and I love that.
I don't buy into that because this is again just the psychology
and
view.
I think it's a good lens to look at. For me, when I approach those types of things, it feels like, not saying you're doing this, it feels almost like a kind of like a ripping the fangs out of something to make it a little easier to understand.
To make it more tame.
Yes.
Because we try to take these imaginal figures, which really in a deep sense is, in a sense, more real than materiality.
Right.
We try to make them seem more tame, to make the small human ego feel more safe. More in control. And that's the thing. These imaginal figures, when we really open up to spirit, the anima, it flows and it's unpredictable.
Right.
We can't control them, and that's scary to the small finite ego. And I think what you're talking to is huge. You're pinpointing, I think, a lot of psychology and just human secularism. We're trying to reduce the infinite unpredictability of creation and the cosmos, which
to put it into a box.
To put it into a box to feel comfortable. And that's the thing. I think there's a huge cost to that. We have this soulless society where so many people are like, something's missing. We have this mental health crisis. And I think it is directly linked to actually the suppression of the spirit, the suppression of these poetic images, these gods. And you were speaking before we started recording about these notions of gods, like Shiva, the Elohim, that I would love to hear you speak about more, because I'm so curious. So do these gods, do they exist somewhere? Where do they exist? Where can I find them?
So from my direct personal experience, the experience that I have working with clients, both under the use of legal psychedelics here in Colorado, and my own use of legal psychedelics, and just living in monasteries, I personally very much believe that these deities are actual things that exist in time and space. If you just think about the size of our planet, how many planets there are in our solar system, how many solar systems there are in our galaxy, how many galaxies there are in our universe, I think that we're the only things here, both corporeal or non-corporeal.
And what does that mean for people who don't know?
Oh, corporeal. So corporeal is like, this is physical. Non-corporeal will be metaphysical. So energetic.
So in form versus not in form, but still beings.
And the form would be non-physical from our perception. And so a good way to think about it. So here within the third dimension, if you think about it from a higher dimensional perspective, we're wearing almost like an underwater wetsuit for our energy system is our chakras, our soul, literally, to be able to navigate this space around us. So it's like, so people say, oh, you're in the matrix, you're wearing a headset. Yeah, you are. It's called your eyes. And they send information and light into your Ajna chakra, which is an energy source inside of your fucking brain that then interprets that as a literal headset, so you can interpret the world around you while actually rate limiting everything else, all these other non-corporeal things. We're being bombarded with information constantly. So that's like it's an aside.
And that's interesting because it makes me think this human physical body, it's designed in part, I mean, I think this is one of the purposes, which is survival.
To be a spiritual fuckboy, I think.
I mean, now it is. Like, let's just put it like that. But I think it's like, it's designed for survival. So again, I'm seeing things that can kill this physical form. That's the purpose of the
or like survival. Like, it doesn't even have to be survival. I think that's such a not to speak ill to you, but I think it's so kind of an unfortunate reality of our society, if it's just so bad here that we have to think about surviving. I think these bodies were designed. I don't joke about the fuckboy part. I think we're designed to have sex and to procreate and have fun, have a good time.
It's half a joke and half dead ass serious. Because I think there's something so potent in that fuckboy image and archetype too, where I think it's also something that's been suppressed by so many men that exist in the unconscious. And can we just own it? Because again, what we resist persists, and what we repress turns to obsession in interesting ways.
It doesn't have to be done in unethical ways. I think you can, share sexuality in beautiful ways. To answer your question though, so if we take the hypothesis or the premise that this is a kind of like an underwater scuba type situation, there would then be a tether to a higher dimensional part that is probably very large relativistically. Some people call these things oversouls. This is where I think it requires that very loose grip. That otherwise we get into dogma, right? Yes, and so we can just say, totally. So we can say, okay, so there's parts of us that are elsewhere. We're very small here, bro, tiny, not as small as the dog over here, but but I
mean, you're pretty fucking massive, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
I've met some big dogs. So we have this part of us that's here. There's another equal part of us that we can communicate to. And I'm sure your experiences of meditation, you've touched into this luminous and not just total metacognition of the watcher that watches, but like this, like, oh my gosh, this larger part. Those other larger parts, those we would call them deities, right? And they can be archetypal, and we can think of them as kind of like oversouls or whatever. Some of them I think are just beings. Like, you and I are a being existing in space and time. And some of them may actually also have corporeal form. And so a lot of people, and I mean, it's funny, Joe Rogan is being accused of a dragon believer. So, but seriously, but actual dragons Every single culture has stated that dragons exist. The Chinese zodiac, all of those other creatures were real creatures.
I've said this for so long, which is like people talk shit on like dragons, say, "Oh, that's completely made up."
No, bro.
There's legends in like medieval
everything.
Where the knight went out, he slayed the dragon, and they hung the skin in the cathedral.
Yeah,
were they making that up?
Siegfried, it's in North mythology, Asian mythology, it's everywhere.
So, and even in Tibet, which is interesting, it brings me back to this notion of the field of belief. When we say there are no dragons, what is the power of this quote unquote human mind, if you want to call it that? What is the depth of its creative capability actually? And it's interesting to me. I've had a curiosity about, back in the day in the Middle Ages in Asia and in Europe and in South America, they see dragons, they see flying reptilians, basically flying reptiles, snakes, whatever. So it's interesting. Back in the day, there was a certain belief system, a certain cosmology that interestingly seemed to allow for that. And now
they're real. It not only did it allow for it, they stated unequivocally these things exist, and
people killed them. Because they were menaces, bro.
Well, and not just people killed them. So if you look at the Lesser Dryad period, and if you look at Nephilim in the Bible, so there was a great cataclysm. So according to the Bible, God said these Nephilim are basically bad. They're the offspring of, depending on what perspective you want to take, hellacious hell spawn. And some of them were not bad. Some of them were human hybrids. If you look at Gilgamesh, he is an example of this.
So these are stories in the Bible.
Correct. Yeah. So if you look at, Gilgamesh is from the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia, but there are many. There was entire cities where some of the rulers of these cities were giants. There's the Book of Giants. And if you read the Book of Enoch talks about how these beings were created, these Nephilim. There's another version too. There's Nephilim, and then my Hebrew is not super great. And so when you look at these beings, there is a very, very, very canonical written text, a lineage. I mean, they also said that people like Moses and others lived to be thousands of years, and then God or Yahweh came in and said, actually, no, you are all going to now only live to be 100, and pestilence is a thing, and you're getting out of hand. I don't like it anymore. And then change the genetic code. If you look at our DNA, telomeres don't need to be the way that they are. We don't need to get old, and peptides are now doing that. I mean, I think I'm doing pretty good for 40,
I mean, you look fucking crazy, bro.
Peptides and steroids, they're great.
I mean, facts, dude. Well, what's so interesting to me, again, I want to stay with this thread of this worldview that allowed for dragons to exist and maybe, in a sense, invoked them. Now, what do we have? We have this dominant worldview of scientific materialism. And now, what do we see in the skies is we see spaceships. Isn't that interesting? I'm so curious. What is the depth of the capability of, again, quote unquote, the human mind to construct what appears to be external? And again, if this is a dream, and what the Tibetans say, the dream yogis say, if this is no different than a dream, then in a dream, the context, the scene that you're in is as much of a construction as you are. By the same thing, by the same being. So what's so interesting is, what is the depth of that capability? And I'm so fucking curious.
Do you know that Key and Peele skit where he gets a text, and when the text is friending, oh, hey, dude, I'll see you later. Or it's very friendly, but then Peele gets it back. Hey, dude, see you later. Right. And it's all that perception. So one output is one way, but the input is receiving it a totally different way. And there's a total disparagement between that. And we can then layer on top with our own narrative what that is. Now, let's say you run the control system and you're one of the evil overlords, and the humans from this perspective are chickens, and you want them to shit out rotten eggs because you happen to like to eat a shit sandwich. Right. And so you're feeding off of negativity. You're going to create a control system that is indicative to whatever it is that you want. Dragons don't exist. Gods aren't real. And if you talk to angels and demons, you're either psychotic or have bipolar, or whatever, or schizophrenia. And you're just lucky that you're not living under a bridge. Where actually these were the mystics, and we're going to put fluoride in the water so your pineal gland gets calcified. So to answer your question, are these things real? Until you have verifiable evidence, like that This is an actual can of actual sparkling water. You have to hold it with that loose grip, particularly if you're in a control system that is so constructed to keep you so bound so tightly that you don't want to fall off the proverbial ledge, as we've described, and then fall into fantasy and illusion, because the control system may be actually constructed to encourage you to do that so they can predate and feed off of that energy as well. And so on all edges, there's potential danger.
Oh my God. Well, from that belief system, what if there's no one trying to harvest us? What if we're just dealing with the weird fuck shit that can spawn in the human psyche?
It could be. I think that is a really, 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 really good argument to get people to think that there are not people fucking with their lives.
I think you look at the news, it's obvious people are fucking with your lives.
So then that then kind of that is the direct personal. If you look at Epstein, you look at what happened with Epstein files, you look at all this shit, it is very clear that there is a very malevolent force that is trying to basically predate and to be a predator towards humanity. What their ultimate goal is up for debate. I've said what my opinion is, and not to say that I'm completely right. We hold it with that loose grip.
I think that you completely could be right.
I think I am right. There are other people that also agree with me. They don't have cool head tattoos like me.
Not yet, bro. Come on, life is long. Maybe I'll get some sick head tats.
Dude, you got great tats. I love your
tattoos.
tattoos.
Man, I appreciate it. Well, I'm actually getting tatted tomorrow.
Oh, for you?
Yeah, I'm getting this thing wrapped around my back. All these reptilian I wanted iguana spines on my neck. I'm not a reptilian, not to the best of my knowledge, or maybe I am. So stay tuned. But anyways, I think that again, holding all of these things lightly, and I think that when we talk about these what do you call them? Over beings?
Yeah, we can say like the power system. Yeah.
So when you say over beings, do you mean gods?
So I think we'd have to. I have an entire cosmology that I've constructed to make sense of all this fucking crazy ass shit. It also helps that I'm a game designer, so I can actually use game theory. Yeah,
bro, you're kind of a fucking legend. I'm not gonna lie, dude. So this brings me. So we've had an insane conversation thus far, and we're gonna keep it going. But I want to bring it back to you, bro.
Sure.
How did you become this?
Yeah,
and not just the image, but how.
Bro, childhood trauma.
Yes, dude. Me too. I'm telling you, bro. And that's where there's a beauty and necessity in the darkness. It forces you to become better, to prove yourself. So I'm curious. I mean, you don't have to share anything you don't want to.
I'm an open book.
I think that those dark nights of the soul, when we can share that, it's so liberating. And for people to hear, especially too, to see an epic being, and again, I won't even call it a human being like you, and to see where you came from. Sure. What created this?
So one of my most pivotal memories, it's so funny, I'm just looking at the spiritual fuckboy over there. It's so funny. Shout out. I love it. It's very cool.
Thank you.
One of my most pivotal memories, so I had suicidal ideation from as long as I can remember. My parents were divorced, and they did their best, but like it was not a good situation for me. And I remember being probably in first grade, just wanting to take my own life. I was like,
first grade.
Oh yeah. As early as I can remember wanting to kill myself and suicidal ideation, fantasizing about it and thinking about how can I actualize this for myself as early as I can remember. And it stemmed from the deep intrinsic understanding and knowing I did not deserve this pain. Correct. I have not done anything to deserve this. Not in this life, not in a past life. Like, no. Like this is not, and maybe I signed up for it, but fucking 6, 7, 8-year-olds doesn't think like that. They think this is not. I don't deserve this.
Right.
And I would fantasize. Okay, how am I going to kill myself? So this is pretty classic suicidal ideation, as you know. I saw in a movie that if you take a bottle of Tylenol or ibuprofen, it'll kill you. I was like, okay, cool. I have now subsequently understood that actually it's a very painful way to die. It erodes your stomach lining. A friend of mine in boarding school actually did that, and he regretted it. It takes you like 3 days to die. So
did he die?
He did. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. If you take a whole bottle of ibuprofen, it'll kill you.
He was like, I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. He regretted it. It was very sad.
He couldn't get his stomach pumped?
They pump it, but the damage has been done, and basically you don't have a stomach anymore. And it eats itself on the inside. So I am not suggesting anyone kill themselves. Please
don't fuck with Tylenol, period, if I'm being honest.
But definitely do not take a whole bottle of ibuprofen. So in this dream, I knew where the ibuprofen was. I took the whole bottle. I felt fucking great. In the dream, I died. And I like literally remember, this was so vivid, floating up above my body and being like, fuck yeah, it's great. I'm out, like, peace out, bitches. Seriously. And I started getting bigger. and older. And I'd never felt this way before. And I turned into like not an adult, but like a fucking very large entity, luminous, bright. Whoa. And I was like, wow, this is like, you know, like Oof. New and different, you know, like, okay, wow, great. Well, still, fuck you bitches. I'm out. And I started going larger. And I saw planet Earth. And I was like, huh, this is odd. And then I started feeling really weird. I was like, I think actually I'm not supposed to be up here. I think I'm supposed to be down there. I don't think I'm done yet. And I was like, no. And then I went back, and I'll never forget, it's so vivid. And I was in this large, the only way I can describe it is a ship. And there was this command console, and there were other beings there. Yeah, it's weird.
This is in a dream.
In a dream.
In a dream where you killed yourself and now you're floating.
Correct.
Into like
it was one of the most vivid experiences of my life. Wow. Panel, lights, all sorts of information. And there were other beings there too. They didn't really want to interact with me because they knew that I was going to be very upset. And I started screaming, send me back in, send me back in, send me back in. And they said, we can't, you killed the vessel. You killed yourself. You can't go back into that now. That is done. That is dead. You made a choice. That choice now has ramifications. You can't go back in. And I remember screaming, and I was huge. I was larger than the other beings that were there. I mean, they were big, but they were, whatever I was different.
Were you like solid, or were you like transparent?
Like luminous white. Yeah, like luminous white, like glowing. Yeah. But physical, like real, like slamming on the console.
I'm curious, is this similar to like astral projection where you have the cord connected to you?
Whatever was down there was dead now. And I remember then in that moment having the most profound regret, not for myself and whatever life that I was going to miss out, but that I knew that I had abandoned in this experience, in this dream, vision, whatever, that I had abandoned other beings down there that came to whatever the shit show was that was planet Earth with me, and that me having self-selected out was going to harm them. And in my mind, most likely specifically harm probably one in particular, whom I would believe or assumed at the time was, going to be my bonded, mated pair. I then had the most profound regret that I've ever experienced in my entire life. Instantly woke up in my child body and like fucking was like, I ain't touching Advil ever again. And my suicide, I have subsequently taken ibuprofen, but not a whole bottle. Yeah. And I then decided from that moment, whatever happens, I just won't kill myself. I can make that choice. Like, life is only going to take 80 years, whatever 80 years of suffering is whatever. At least I won't have that regret. Yeah. That was a very pivotal moment for me, to answer your question. The reason, because once death and suicide is off the table for someone who wants to die, you almost get kind of like a free lease on life. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You fuck off, play video, because you're basically already dead. So long as you don't kill yourself, you're just going to stick around. So either you can play video games the whole time, or go research what it is to live a good life. Right. Go learn philosophy, go fucking live in Japan, go learn martial arts, go do D&D shit, go marry a fucking porn star, which I then did. I don't know.
I was going to say, is this a
red flags? Red flags on that one. Let me tell you. But you learn a lot. And so from this perspective, I then lived that version of life and still am. And so that was an incredibly pivotal moment for me to then really try to fucking do something. And there have been times I've been lazy, like played too much World of Warcraft, but that too has its own learning.
Totally. And this brings me to what we just talked about in my last podcast, which is this notion of purpose and meaning. And so where do you get that in your life? I mean, something has driven you to become, again, epic. Sure. You're living a myth right now. Sure. Just like, me in a sense. We're all living myths.
I was going to say, I'm such a good mirror for you.
Bro. We are very similar. I think we've done some human design type shit where we are quite similar. Yeah. But so where do you find purpose? Where do you find meaning here now?
Yeah. I really enjoy co-sharing love with beloved people. And that can be anything from a beautiful podcast, making love, creating art, whatever it is. But it's the co-sharing of energy of two people coming together and creating something new. So that's really fun for me. Within my philosophy, I call that the truly safe. So you can enter into the choice, not being fearful, consensual, co-creation of mutually subjective moments. So this is a mutually subjective moment that I hope is beautiful. It's beautiful for me.
I think it's pretty fucking beautiful. Bro.
Joy is created. And so when we live a life of joy, that's something that we then want to maximize. And so when I think of the things that I want to do, joyful things based off of that criteria. Now, when you look around and let's say the guy that I was very upset at first because literally says, do not walk. And I realized he has no fucking, his socks. Like there was a sock part here and like no socks where the toes were or where the heels was, and he's covered in a fucking blanket. I was like, I can't be angry at this guy. Clearly he has some problems. Yeah. So when you try to co-create joy and don't account for the mass suffering around you, you are then either an asshole or ignorant, maybe both. Yeah. And so then it's how can you both simultaneously co-create your own joy and then try to maximize joy for other people too, without losing yourself in that in martyrdom. Yeah. So do good in the world.
What I'm hearing, I mean, this whole notion of coming back to life for a reason to serve people or somebody. Yeah. Like it reminds me of this bodhisattva ideal.
Sure.
Where you're actually forsaking your own complete, utter enlightenment, freedom for the sake of everyone else. Yeah. And recognizing who knows, like I really can't say if I signed a contract and lived, I can't say. Sure. I think it's a cool idea. Yeah. And it's like, it reminds me of my homie Jeremy, who I went to grad school with. And I've had him on the podcast a few times. Shout out Jeremy. But he talks about this experience he had when he took 10 grams of mushrooms and like died and came back to life. Where he saw, and this is before he got really into Buddhism. Actually, he saw himself with a bunch of Tibetan monks, and they're all like at a whiteboard, like scribbling shit, and they're like, "This time we're gonna get it right." And then many things happened in that experience. Jeremy will tell us someday, but he came back and he's like, okay, this time we're going to do it right. Yeah. And it's like, what if you let those people down? Yeah. What if then we can't do it? Yeah. Because Light offed himself.
Kill himself. Totally, bro. Don't do that.
Yeah,
don't kill
exactly.
yourself.
It's all, again, I think owning that it is part of something bigger than ourselves. This plan, plan is almost a little too
adventure.
Exactly. This play, this theater, the divine Leela that we're experiencing. We have a role to play. Reminds me of that Shakespeare quote in I forget what Othello or something was. We are actors as I foretold you. Mm-hmm. Our revels now are ended. We're actors in this Leela. And can we again hold all of that loosely? Yeah. Where I'm human, but I'm also an actor in this play. Yep. And for you coming back to this incarnation in order to be of service and to fulfill your role and to create, I think it's poetic, beautiful, and probably relatable to many people. Like, what is the purpose here? Because in a very real way,
to co-create joy.
Do you think that's it?
100%.
That is it for you?
So literally for me, it's an algorithm. So all that has to be true, you can't lie, safe, consenting, you have to actually be able to consent, co-creation of mutually subjective moments. That is joy, equals joy.
I love how like, you have so much of that masculine mind, like that analytical ability to like compartmentalize, to create systems. Yeah. It's really cool to watch. Yeah. And I'm like, damn, I can't do that.
Well, I'm a little older than you, so I've had time to think about these things. Right. So I had a conversation with a young woman the other night. And as I mentioned before the podcast, she was like, the way that your mind works is so beautiful. She's like, I want it. Yeah. And I had to remind her, I've had time to think about these things. I'm 40. Remind me how old you are?
29.
Bro. Right. But so think about yourself in what is this, 11 years? Yeah. Oh my God. Now,
that's a long time.
I know. And so from this perspective, a deep thinker like you are, you will have time. You're building experience now, and you will have time to then think about these things. A lot of people, and I don't want to speak ill of others, but when they're washing dishes, maybe they're really focused on the dishes. That's great if they're Zen. Otherwise, they're maybe thinking about like a fucking sports game or something dumb. Yeah. Or you can think deeply about these things, and you can create systems. And then if you do the right drugs, you can really unlock. You can unlock some pretty cool stuff.
I completely agree. Shout out psilocybin. Shout out DMT.
Yeah.
So I think you're so right. And what's interesting for me is my friends have jokingly talked about this notion of NPCs, for years. So non-playable characters. I think it's, obviously sort of a joke, but there's also some, truth behind that joke. And it's like, what is that?
Yeah.
And for me, I see you know, they talk about our physical body as a product of the food we eat.
Sure.
I think our like mental, spiritual body, our the expression of our being is in part, I'm maybe totally a product of what we consume.
Yep.
So if my awareness is only focusing on football and stocks and taxes, interestingly, I'm very quote unquote normal.
Yep.
You know, if my awareness focuses on the existential uncertainty of existence and all of these beautiful poetic stories that could be real, we reflect that. And I see that in you, and that's where you are like, your whole being is like an enchanted creature because you spend time with these things. You focus your awareness on that. You are consuming really cool shit, and your being then gets to reflect that.
And then you are producing that. And if you are truly co-creating mutually subjective, beautiful moments with other people, I'm talking about you doing cool shit, you get a force multiplier on your own cool shit.
Whoa.
But you, right?
I feel
because you're
right
creating
now.
Something cool and then it builds.
Yeah. Dude, you're a fucking legend,
bro.
I'm so
there's so much mirroring. It's so good. There's so much mirroring.
Dude, and I see you with the silver fangs in. I used to have a bottom rack of silver grills.
Oh, did you real?
Yeah, dude. I lost them at Burning Man.
I know a guy in Denver. We can hook you up.
Really? Okay, let me know, dude. I need some silver grills to ward off the undead.
That's it.
God knows they're out there.
Aggravated damage. So the cool thing about 3-Eye Atlas, though, is that it is definitely whatever weird predation it was going to do stopped. And it happened when it came around the sun. There were more solar flares during that period. It was off-gassing shit into the sun.
Wait, is that actually due to 3-Eye Atlas? So
yes.
The fact that there was like Northern Lights in Colorado.
All sorts of fucking crazy ass shit. Now, mainstream propaganda was trying to say, oh, it's just off-gassing water in rates that we didn't know was possible because shut the fuck up and pay taxes.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's a scared human mind. It's like, just rationalize, explain it. There's an explanation for this.
No, bro, there's
like,
they're literally fed a script to tell people, and then that's what those people consume. And I think it's to go back to your NPC point. My whole point is that 3-Eye Atlas has been neutralized, which is great. But from this perspective, the NPC, I think, are people that either did not have the inclination or the courage to really step into whatever their majesty is. They also
interesting, like the unknown of who we are, really.
And embrace that.
Well, that groundlessness is terrifying.
Can be
to the ego.
Can be
when you have a very solidified ego structure, and let's just say the ego exists on a spectrum. And like this is, you know, you can just see this. If I walk into a party and I know nobody, there's a very tight sense of self.
Can be.
Right? There can be. Exactly. There can be.
I love going to parties where I don't know anybody. Yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing. When everyone is like, who is this dude? And it makes you be like, who am I? I don't even fucking know.
I know totally who I'm Lightstone, bro.
You are Lightstone, bro.
Yeah.
You're a fucking epic being, dude.
But so what would it be like to go into those spaces and be like, I am this, but not, and also not. You know what is it in Sanskrit? It's like not this, not that.
Yeah.
But like I am this, but not this.
Yeah.
Right.
And to hold them both.
Yeah.
And hold it all loosely. And that's where I find a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Where like if I'm, you know, spitting game to chicks, or if I'm entering that party and I know nobody.
Yeah.
It's like people have their assumptions. They're all made up.
Yeah.
Just like my story about me, equally made up.
Yeah.
And it's like from there you can let it all go.
But it's made up and also surpassed through that self-authoring into self-transforming that we talked about. Because it's not made up.
It's real too.
And you can hide behind the made up, but you're not made up.
Yeah.
There is beauty to you. There is magic to you. Your tattoos are very cool. They are very deliberate.
Likewise. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
But that is real.
Yep.
Are you familiar with the 10 ox herding pictures in Zen?
I am familiar with that.
Okay. So that last one of coming back into the marketplace, and it like the full circle, I think is only like 8, and then there's like 9, and then 10, and then it's coming back around, and him being like, I am whatever enlightened fucking means, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, absolute supreme enlightenment. However that individual wants to embrace that, they do come back around and they hold that duality of I'm back in the marketplace. Exactly. I'm fucking chilling.
Exactly. And for me, I get this quote from Christ, I think, which is to be in the world, but not of it.
There you go.
I can still play as this actor.
Right.
And I recognize it as an actor and it is real.
Yeah.
And simultaneously it's made up. And the logical mind is like, it has to be one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where embracing paradox
is
we get to deeper truths actually, where it's actually both. And in a very deep way, then it must be kind of neither or both, neither and both and all at the same time.
Right.
And that's the thing.
That's just transcend the duality.
Exactly. And then it comes back to, well, I have to try something on at a given time.
Yeah.
In this world of duality, I got to pick something.
And that's why I view it as a decision-making matrix.
Yes.
It's not even a self. Yeah. It's like the matrix that's making decisions. And so we are the product of our choices.
Yeah.
There is no solid thing there. And that's the very Buddhist concept. It is actually like the Chat GPT prompt that then allows us to choose well.
Yeah.
And so we are then our ethics if we stick to them. Otherwise we're a liar, and then we're that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, we could talk forever. I think we have to end pretty soon because I got another podcast after this.
That's good.
But
well, we'll have you on my podcast.
Please. And I would love to talk about ethics too.
Okay.
Because with this notion of not real or unreal,
Sure.
people are like, well, what about ethics? And that's a valid fucking statement. Because like, if there's no ethics, like my buddy talks about like these Zen monks that had a deep realization of emptiness, and then they just rape and murder.
Totally.
And everything's empty. Yeah. And it's like, well,
shout out to Trump or not Trump. Well, we both went to Naropa.
We did both go to Naropa.
We can actually speak to this. I agree and see the fallout of these Tibetan people who abuse their power.
Not just Tibetans. Like I worked at a farm. It was a Sikh community in New Mexico where this dude Yogi Bhajan was like the head teacher, and then it comes out he's like, I mean, I don't want to say anything crazy. I think like a child rapist. I went to a yogic ashram called Kripalu, and his main student was raping all these women. And so what's the deal with that?
They have not tried to appreciate and approach, as you have said, the spiritual fuckboy, but their masculinity in a safe way. Yeah. And I remember in my 30s, I got married in my 20s. I was married for 5 years. I then, took a little bit of time off. And I remember wanting to have that energy go out. And then I got married again and was very happy monogamous. And now I'm a monogamous entity. But I think that there are these waves that you need to embrace. I just finished talking with a client, and she was in a very, they call it now open relating. It's no longer called poly, I guess. And so she was in this open relating situation, didn't work out. And now she's coming back into monogamy. It's so beautiful to see those seasons. But if you don't approach and appreciate the season that you're in without judgment and still have ethics or follow consent, it can be a disaster.
It's like the soul needs to express.
Yeah.
And I use soul very loosely. The deepest parts of us, it needs to fuck around to find out.
Sure.
And if you're too scared to step into that, like if I'm too scared to step into the spiritual fuckboy, something's lacking in my soul that doesn't feel authentic. When I finally made the decision of like, all right, I'm gonna fucking use that title. We're spiritual fuckboy now. It felt like, it's a dramatic shift, but it felt right because I'm like, fuck all that conditioned norm of what spirituality looks like. Let's step into something that's kind of funny.
And who knows what that means? You could be a spiritual fuckboy for one very lucky lady.
Yeah. All day. And that's
seriously.
My homies are like, what happens when you're in a monogamous relationship?
Bro, lucky her.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Exactly. Yeah. Bro. You get it.
Yeah.
My man, you get it. Bro. Okay, Light, I'm stoked to spend time with you. You're a epic person.
The mirror is so strong.
I know, dude. So I'm stoked to like rekindle this connection, to be chilling and doing shit together, and to be on your podcast. Yeah. Do you know the name of what your podcast is?
The Stone Protocol.
The Stone Protocol.
Yeah, and maybe the Stone Protocol show, we'll figure it out. Dude. My coaching program is also called the Stone Protocol, but yeah.
So as we wrap up for now, do you want to shout yourself out?
100%. So for anyone who's interested and wants to learn more, you can find me at thestoneprotocol.com, and Instagram is actually the best way to get in touch with me. So that's lightstone.media, LIGHTSTONE.media. You can send me a DM, follow me on Instagram. If you are questioning or trying to understand any of these things in your life, or just want to embrace some of the deific in your own life, or do trauma healing or internal family systems, or even just being a fucking badass, my entire coaching program is basically based around power is a love language. And I will help you, like I embrace, to be one of, if not the most magnetic, trusted, and dangerous things in the room. And that way you can have that for yourself. So when you move through space, not only do you trust yourself, other people trust you too. And that trust is really well founded on your own personal sense of power as a love language.
Bro, you're epic. I've never seen anything like this. My man.
The mirroring.
My man. Okay. So this is the first of many conversations.
100%.
And thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everyone who watched this episode. I keep saying this, but this might have been one of my favorite episodes ever.
I love it, bro.
It's like epic, dude. You're a legend. I'm so stoked that this happened. Divine timing, as always. So thank you, Light. Thank you, Yuval. Thank you, everyone listening. And stay tuned for more.
He's real, I promise.
He is real.
I proved it.
Or is he? Oh, maybe we heard him. I don't know. But that's for the listener to decide, I suppose. But thank you, everyone.